It happened to me roughly 10 years ago. After having to deal with a particularly stressful university term, I found myself really tight on money once summer rolled around. I decided I should pick up the slack and apply for some jobs at nearby establishments. I had been putting in resume after resume at various different stores and restaurants in the hopes that I could get some form of income, and eventually I finally did. I landed a job at the nearest Dunkin' Donuts. It was a smaller establishment, a little building with eggshell siding sitting next to a little convenience store. It looked pretty quaint, but when I got inside I realized something seemed off. It seemed clean. Too clean. The sort of thing you see in a commercial. Everything was always so shiny and spotless, yet I rarely ever saw anyone clean it up. The strangest thing, though, was that the same people were always there, always doing the same thing. I know that repeat customers are common for establishments like coffee shops and restaurants, but they took it to a whole other level. They always ordered the exact same thing in the exact same way. They always wore the exact same clothes, always sat in the exact same place, and always talked about the exact same things. My coworkers were similar, although to a lesser extent. They always did the exact same thing, always addressed the customers in the exact same way. But they always seemed on edge. The slightest thing would make them jump or surprise them. For weeks on end, I wondered what was so off about this Dunkin' Donuts. That was until he showed up. One day, while we were working our normal shift, someone new finally came in. My mouth hung agape as I stared at him. Somehow, for some reason, award-winning actor Al Pacino had made his way into our Dunkin' Donuts. "Wow!" cried a customer. "Al Pacino!" exclaimed my blonde coworker. Al made his way closer to the counter. "It's not Al anymore. It's Dunk." I didn't know what to say. So his name was Dunk Pacino now? How do I even respond to that? And he's clearly come over to my counter for something. I fumbled over myself and accidentally said the name of the drink I was holding. "Dunkaccino?" Dunk snatched the drink from me. "Don't mind if I do." What happened next hasn't left my mind since. It was surreal. The customers and my coworkers began performing some sort of elaborate flash mob dance, all the while Dunk rapped about both himself and the Dunkaccino drink. "What's my name?" he'd ask. "Dunkaccino!" cried both the customers and my colleagues. "It's a whole new game," he continued. "Dunkaccino!" they chanted yet again. I didn't really know what to do. I bopped around to the music to blend in as I stealthily moved to the break room, hoping that by the time I get out it will be over. Two of my colleagues were waiting for me there. I sighed with relief. Thank God some people weren't participating in this weird dance. Then they grabbed me. I tried to shout, but they covered my mouth. Soon I found myself forced into a Dunkaccino mascot costume, as my face was painted to match the costume's color. I was sent back out to the main area, where Dunk continued his song. "Kids from 7 to 17, lining up for my Dunkaccino." I found myself dancing with him, singing along. I couldn't control myself. I didn't even know how I was keeping up with him while I was dancing around in that huge costume. Then, it was over. Dunk and I struck a pose as the music stopped. In the blink of an eye, I suddenly found myself back behind the counter, as if nothing had even happened. I wasn't in the costume anymore, and my face wasn't painted either. I remember asking my blonde coworker what the hell just happened, but she ignored me. Anytime I tried to ask anyone about it, they just ignored me. I thought that maybe I just hadn't gotten enough sleep, and that maybe I had just had an oddly surreal dream. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to cling to that ridiculous belief for long, as the next week, it happened again. And then the next week, and the next week, and the next week. Every week, Al Pacino entered our Dunkin' Donuts, announced that he had changed his name to Dunk. I fumbled with my words, and he began the song and dance number. I kept trying to evacuate somewhere else instead of the break room, the bathroom, the kitchen, the supply closet. But my coworkers were always one step ahead of me, always there waiting to shove me into that godforsaken costume. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I quit. Sure, I was getting a relatively decent pay, but I couldn't take the weekly occurrence of Dunkaccino. I never understood what was happening there either. It couldn't have been a dream, as it was almost exactly the same every time. Was it some kind of vision? A hallucination, maybe? Was there something in the drinks? I don't know. I later found work at a Starbucks, a while away from that Dunkin' Donuts, where I had no such occurrences of the sort. I did have a few nightmares of him following me. Nightmares where everything would start repeating there too. Then he'd walk in with all the confidence and swagger in the world, just like he did at Dunkin' Donuts. The customers and my colleagues would act in the exact same way as the ones from my old job. Wow! Al Pacino! It's not Al anymore. It's Cap. For the next year or so, I became extremely paranoid that someday he'd just show up again into my life, causing the same bizarre anomaly that he did at Dunkin' Donuts. After a few years, I forgot about the incident. Well, almost forgot. A few weeks ago, I began receiving DoorDash deliveries that I never ordered. Every week, a delivery guy will show up at my house with a Dunkaccino that I didn't order. I explained to him that I didn't order the drink, and I eventually asked him to ignore any other orders that may be delivered to my home. Luckily for me, that worked for a while. After DoorDash stopped accepting those orders, I started receiving deliveries from Uber Eats. And when I got them to stop, I received deliveries from Grubhub. Eventually they stopped, but that didn't help anything. Instead of having Dunkaccinos delivered to my home, I began finding them inside my home. Once a week, at some random corner of my house, I find a Dunkaccino, still hot. I think I may try to move houses, because last night, I tried pulling an all-nighter to see if I could confront whoever the fuck was teasing me with these stupid drinks. As I tried to keep myself awake, I felt so tired. But before I could slip away into unconsciousness, the sound of my door's handle being struggled with ripped through the house, followed by aggressive knocking. I grabbed a kitchen knife and went to the door. I was shaking. I didn't know what to expect when I opened the door, but I knew whatever was out there must want to fight. I threw open the door, holding the knife in the most defensive position I could. But there was nobody there. The only thing that was out there was a freshly brewed Dunkaccino on my step. And a message was written on it. I know it was you.